Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am live on a Saturday night, which is very unusual for me, but I have had a chance to work with the add-on cards for the May Paper Pumpkin Kit. They're called Exploring in Color cards and envelopes. I love them. I, I had to do some type of experimenting playing with these cards even before the paper pumpkin kit comes out. So I'm going to go over all of that in just a minute, and then we're going to go down to the table and focus on the cards. So if you are just coming on, whether you're watching live or in the replay, be sure to say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you're a Paper Pumpkin subscriber. I would love to hear because Paper Pumpkin subscribers who are active are the people who can purchase add-ons. And the add-ons are actually available prior to the kit deadline, which is interesting, right? But these became available on May 2nd. And they are while supplies last. And I have to just give you guys some ideas with them because I absolutely love nature themes. I know many of you do too. And these cards are just absolutely stunning. Colors, right? There are brand new in colors collection, 2023 to 2025. And they're just beautiful. There are so many different things that you can coordinate with them. These actually look really simple. So we're going to be doing a little bit of coloring tonight. And I just want to go ahead and just say that right ahead of time. But let me go ahead and just do my introductions for you. So my name is Melinda Hart. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up. And you can find more information about the projects that I create on my blog at stampingwithheart.blogspot.com. I have it listed right down here. Now, I am going to have a free project sheet available for these cards. If you're watching the live, it's not ready yet. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, I have been posting full replays recently, and I will make sure that that project sheet is ready by the time the replay posts tomorrow. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. So there will be a free project sheet. I just don't have it ready at the time of the live because I literally just finished making the cards. So let me go ahead and go over just a couple of things for the May Paper Pumpkin. So let's see, I have it right here. All right. So for the May Paper Pumpkin Kit, so the May 2023 Paper Pumpkin Kit, this is a monthly craft subscription box from Stampin' Up. The majority of them are card making kits. And then sometimes they have add-on products that coordinate with it. If you want to subscribe to the actual Paper Pumpkin Kit, the deadline to do that is May 10th. And the name of the kit is the same as the add-on cards. They're both called Exploring in Color. So just make sure that you are subscribed if you like the add-on cards, right? Because that is a really good indicator of what that kit is going to look like. We never know 100% what's in it until we get it, which is part of the fun of Paper Pumpkin, but they've had some great teasers out there. So this is the first time ever that I am working with an add-on prior to getting the kit. I've never actually done that before, but these are gorgeous standalone cards. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, if you have prepaid codes for Paper Pumpkin, either make sure that they are activated, or if you skipped a month, or if you happen to have canceled and you want to restart, or you want to make sure that your code is active, just make sure you do that by May 10th as well. I just like to shout that out. Okay, so now that we've gone over that, I'm actually just going to jump right down to the table and we're just going to dive in and start looking at these cards. If you guys have any questions for me along the way, you can either post them in the comments here on Facebook or in the comments on YouTube, and I will be sure to answer you, whether it's live or in the replay. Okay. Hi, Joan. How are you? Okay. So let's go down to the table now and let's take a look at these cards. All right, so I'm going to go over the products and everything that we're going to be using with these tonight in just a second, but let me show you the cards first, okay? So I should hold up the original card next to these, but this just gives you an idea of how gorgeous these add-on cards are as backgrounds. Okay, so that was the concept here. So here's the first card. Here is the second card. And I'll show you the stamp set that I coordinated with that in just a moment. And then here, these two are actually the same background, just used in very slightly different ways with different sets. And we'll talk about that. But in terms of the scale, I thought this bear was perfect with this particular background. And then here is the other one. So let me go ahead and hold this one up. So I did end up using all 3 card layouts for these cards. And we're going to make a couple together. I don't know if we're going to get to do all 3, but I'll make sure I have instructions for all 3 in my project sheet, and we'll do what we can on our live this evening. It depends on how long it goes. So yeah, it's an unusual time for me. It's actually 8:30 Eastern. We're kind of climbing up on 8:40 now, but that's okay. Okay, so let's talk about the products that we're going to be using with these cards. The first one is going to be the May 2023 Paper Pumpkin add-on cards and envelopes. So this is called Exploring in Color Cards and Envelopes. You get 18 cards and envelopes in this pack. The item number is 163113, and it's only $10. Okay, so this is what the pack looks like when you get it new. I'll show you what the cards look like here. I have them right over here. So this is what the cards look like before I've done anything with them, right? So here is our boho blue add-on card, and this is what I added to it. So again, very subtle, but you guys can see we've added some people here. All right, and we've just added a little sentiment right up at the top. And then that was the boho blue card. And then let me show you what the others look like here. And I'll show you the envelopes too in just a second. Don't mind my mess. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's this one. This is the Moody Mauve layout, and this is what I ended up doing with it. So the before and sort of after. You can see how well that blends as a background. At least I thought so. And then here, let me show you the other one, which is our copper clay. Okay. And that's this one here. All right. And then I have 2 with this version. So here's the one with the girl, just adding the girl in. And then here is with the bear. Okay, so we're going to talk about, the coordinating products that we're going to use with these, but just very simple additions to these cards. In this particular video, we're really going to let these cards be the star of the show, right? Like everything is sort of designed to complement these extraordinary backgrounds. I mean, the artwork on these is just beyond, in my personal opinion. I mean, I would love to know who made these. Now, these are the coordinating envelopes. So you get solid color envelopes to go with each one. So there's our copper clay. Here's our Moody Mauve. And then we also have our boho blue, which boho blue, according to the CEO of Stampin Up, Sarah Douglas, is the best-selling in color right now. So that's really cool to know. And that is one of the envelopes for that, okay? So then here are the other things that we're going to be using. So that was the first one. This is going to be like the star of the show tonight. And then let's talk about some coordinating product that we're going to use to go with it. We're going to be using the 2023-2025 in color treat bags, but we're not going to be using them as a treat bag. We're going to be using them as a layering piece. So basically, we're going to turn this into designer series paper for this particular video. And here is what these look like. Let me just get these down here for you. Okay. So just to give you an idea of what they look like here, this is the Moody Mauve. Okay, we're not going to be using those colors. The only ones we're going to use tonight are Wild Wheats and boho blue. Every time I go to say boho blue, you guys, I want to say balmy blue. Oh my gosh. So bear with me. But there's copper clay. If you guys, you probably can't see that from here. Let me hold it up. There's copper clay. We're not going to be using copper clay, but this is just an idea to let you know. These are fabulous. They're fabulous. If you guys have anybody who's going like camping or anything this year, and you want to make them up like a little s'mores bag, you know what I mean? Pop a like a wrapped graham cracker, maybe, you know, just a little thing of mini marshmallows, maybe a pack of hot chocolate, or like a Hershey bar or something. And then you can actually turn these into tags with this and it would coordinate perfectly. The other thing is, let me just show you. If for whatever reason you're giving away a gift and you want to put your card right in the bag, the card fits. Okay, so this basically will fit a medium-sized card or an A2 size card, if you're wondering about the size of the treat bags, but we're going to be using them for a layering piece. Okay, so that's those. Hang on just one second. I've already got my pile going. So we're also going to be using the in color dots, just a couple of these tonight. Those are the 2023, 2025 in color dots. And now let's go through our stamp sets that we're going to be using. Hang on one second. La, la, la. We got to get busy here, so I need to keep it moving. Okay, so this one is a brand new stamp set. Hi, Kathy. How are you? Oh, thank you, Joan. She says, those are beautiful. Love the 3D look. Me too, Joan. I don't know. They pop to me. I love them. Like I said, I had to do something with these cards. I literally could not wait for the paper pumpkin kit. It's like the first time ever. So this is a brand new stamp set from the new catalog. It's called Coffee with Friends. And this is one of the sets that we're going to be using with these cards. So for example, the girls on the bench here are from this stamp set. And the girl here, she's sitting on the steps, but I fussy cut her out. So there's going to be coloring and fussy cutting tonight. So let me just say that ahead of time. But it's this image here. And then I did Thinking of You, which was also from this particular stamp set. Okay, so that's one of the sets that we're going to use. That's from the new, right? This is a returning stamp set, meaning this was in our last catalog and it carried over because it is adored, and there is a reason for that. It's absolutely fabulous. So this is Wildlife Wonder, and we used our bear with Wildlife Wonder right here, okay? And then A Note of Thanks is also from this stamp set. And then with the girls, where it says "You mean so much to me," that's actually also from Wildlife Wonder. So I just want to point this out in case, you know, I go down a squirrel rabbit hole type situation and start getting distracted, because that has been known to happen. Okay, and this one is like one of my all-time favorites. This is Grassy Grove. It was originally a bundle. The products have carried over into this new annual catalog, but they are now separate purchases. So you would be able to get the Grassy Grove stamp set if you want to get the Grassy Grove stamp set. And I did use this. I'll show you how I use this. And then you could also get the Grove dies. Now, there's a whole set of dies that coordinate with this stamp set, but this is the one that I want to focus on tonight. So this is the die that cuts out this whole tree scene. Okay, so you've probably seen me using this before. I did a technique with this back when the bundle first came out, and you guys really loved it. So I'm going to do it again here tonight, just to kind of repeat that. In the original video, I had sped it up too fast, and I got a lot of feedback about that. So this time you'll be seeing me do it in real time. And then See the Good, that's actually from Grassy Grove, okay, in terms of sentiments, just in case. So these are 3 completely different stamp sets, but they can all coordinate with these cards. So the most important thing that I could tell you is that you don't necessarily have to have the paper pumpkin kit for these cards to absolutely sing, right? And just be a really great addition to your collection. I can't say that enough. And if you want to shout out in the comments, maybe one of your favorite nature scenes, one of your favorite nature scene stamp sets or die sets from Stampin' Up, let me know, because, you know, that's always something that you could give somebody ideas as to what they could use to coordinate this with. Another one that pops to mind is the mountain set, but I can't think of the name of it offhand. So the other things that we are going to be using in terms of dies. Now, I did kind of use a bunch of different things. You use whatever you're most comfortable with. I used the deckled rectangle dies, but I just used the largest one. So only one die from that set tonight. All right. And the reason I did that is because this cuts into paper. It does not cut out, meaning it cuts a scene right into the paper. Basically, it stays inside whatever piece you cut. When you use this deckled rectangle with it, if you run these through together just like this, you end up with an independent piece that looks like this. Okay, so I've already cut this, but I think it is an absolutely perfect pairing. So if you are looking for sort of like the perfect layer to go with this particular die set, I think that these were just meant to be. I really feel like they were meant to be together. They're two completely different die sets, but I had to mention it. So absolutely loving these. Kathy had asked me the other night, she was surprised that I didn't have them sooner. And I wish I would have ordered them a year ago. They're fabulous. So I'm late to that party, but you know what? Better late than never, right? So yeah, so that's the independent piece that you get if you run these two dies through together at the same time. And if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. Just for the sake of saving time in the video, because we have to do some coloring tonight, I pre-cut this. Okay, so I'm not going to run that through unless you guys want to see me do that. And if you do, I would be happy to just, you know, shout it out. Otherwise, if you get the idea, then we'll just leave it be. And then the other thing that I'm using are these brand new Nested Essentials dies. Just something I want to bring your attention to because I do think that these are going to be a set that you would utilize very often. If you're somebody who gets Paper Pumpkin every month, Paper Pumpkin is an all-inclusive kit, so all of those pieces are already done for you. But once those consumable die-cut pieces are gone, it's sets like this that are absolutely perfect. So if you're just starting to build your crafting collection or you're just starting to build your tools, consider this one because I think it's going to be so versatile and useful with our monthly Paper Pumpkin kits to keep those going, you know, with the stamp sets even after the pieces are gone. Okay, so that pretty much covers all of like the stamps and the tools that we're using with these cards tonight. I know that sounds like a lot, but really it's just like one die from each thing. So here's where we're going to start. We're actually going to start with this one. I feel like this will be the easiest one, and then we can move on from there. So I'm just going to pop these over to the side. We are going to be coloring with some Stampin' Blends tonight. I did pull some colors to use. Let me see if I can flip this to the camera for our ink colors tonight. So we're going to be using a little bit of boho blue, copper clay, wild wheat, and then for our nature scene that we're about to stamp, it's just a combination of like old olive, mossy meadow, garden green, and parakeet party. I don't have my full-size mossy meadow here. I've got the little baby guy, our little ink spot. But you use whatever you have. And then the Memento ink pad is specifically for my Stampin' Blend coloring because this ink is safe to use with alcohol-based markers, which is what Stampin' Blends are. So that's why I use this when I'm coloring with blends. So just wanted to shout that out. If you're not coloring with blends, you don't need it. But just wanted to mention that. Okay. So let's start here. I'm going to get my little scrap piece out because we're going to get a little bit messy with this one. So this is the piece here. I already have a lot of the stamps mounted so that we can just kind of move this along, hopefully move it along, but you know me. Let's see. I am trying to find my Simply Chamois. Here we go with the things. I think I see it. Okay, here we go. I put it with my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. All right, so here is the technique that I originally did with this. So you can see, you know, when this is in this condition, you can basically do whatever you want. You can color it with Stampin' Write markers, Stampin' Blends. You can use ink. You can use daubers. You could use blending brushes, whatever you want. I'm going to do a combination of things. I really like this textured look. And the way that I got that look was by taking this little tree stamp right here. So this is actually from Grassy Grove. And we're just going to stamp that sort of leafy look from these trees over and over again on this. So I'm just going to clean this off. All right. And then I'm going to start with Mossy Meadow. These are my two white card bases that we need for our cards in a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to leave those over there. All right. And so let's get our Mossy Meadow. Now you don't have to ink the tree trunks. It doesn't really matter. We really want to be focused more on the big fluffy trees. Okay, now my my mossy meadow needs to be re-inked, so just bear with me, but we're just going to do this a couple of times. So no rhyme or reason to it. We're just trying to create the texture. So I'm going to stamp it down once, stamp it down a second time, and we're just going to repeat that process. I'm just going to ink this in the air so that I don't shake my table. All right, and then we're just going to kind of go through. We're going to do this with like 2 or 3 different greens just to give it a little bit more of like a, you know, a textured multicolor feel. Like when I look at the tree line right now, as all of our leaves are coming back, you know, they all have different kind of colors and shades and all varying shades of like yellows and greens, at least where I am. I'm in Pennsylvania, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous day today. Gorgeous, gorgeous, perfect weather day. Yesterday too, gorgeous weather. 60s, you know, warm when you're in the sunshine. We took Connor to a little soccer field. We've been trying to practice with a soccer ball with him. Oh my gosh, it is so cute. He's doing so well with that. So we're going to sign him up to play soccer in the fall. So you guys, I'm sure, will be seeing a lot of pictures as long as we can, if it holds his interest, right? Okay. So here you can see it like goes down the sides too. I don't want you to be too preoccupied with the fact if you cover any branches, it's really okay. It's not a big deal. If you have your full-size ink pad, this isn't probably going to take as long, but it's okay. So I'm just going to kind of go down to the sides. I'm going to use a different stamp on the bottom because it's more of like a grassy area. So we're going to stick to the trees like around the upper frame here. And like I said, if you happen to get any ink on the tree trunks or the branches, don't worry about it. We're going to do some overlap with our Stampin' Blends to get our tree trunk color here in a minute. Okay. So at this time of year, especially, I think that these sets really come in handy. And I'm just gonna, one more time, and then we're gonna bring in some different color here. Okay, so that was our first color. Now I'm gonna switch to a little bit of Old Olive. I'm just gonna clean that real quick. Okay, don't see any comments coming in, which is totally fine, just as long as you guys can still hear me. And I'm going to go to Old Olive now. Anybody crafting on this Saturday night, or has everybody been busy and out and about? Let me know. Okay, so Old Olive, we're just basically going to do the same thing. We're just going to get a pattern going, and you can see this color is much stronger. My goal here is to eliminate any of like the white areas. I really want this to look natural nature scene-ish. And I am going to use Parakeet Party, which is pretty bright. Now, if you want a little bit more of a muted look, you could even try like stamping off wild wheat, maybe putting a little bit of wild wheat in there if you want a little bit of a touch of yellow, because they have like a little bit of yellow in there. You could go darker, you know, if you want to, just depends. I liked the way that Parakeet Party looked. I just don't want to use a ton of it. That looks great. All right, so there's I love Old Olive. That's just like a go-to for me, especially with nature scenes. And for those of you who watch me on a regular basis, or if you've seen more than one video from me, I would be using Evening Evergreen right now, but it is gone. So I'm trying to deal. We have plenty of other greens, but I miss it. Okay, Parakeet Party. For those of you who do this for the hobby, of course, you can keep, you know, all of your colors and use all of your colors all throughout the year. But when I'm demonstrating for other people, I like to make sure I'm using current product, just for anybody who's curious, like, what happened to your garden green? See how it just brings in that pop of color, just really sort of brightens it up. I just think that that's so cool. And it looks like super bright when you first stamp it down, you know, it looks like a tennis ball. But once this dries down, it's still bright, but it's so pretty. It's such a nice mix to have. And you can stamp off too, just whatever whatever you think is best there. All right, and I'm just going to bring it down here to the sides as well. And then for our big stamp here, we're going to do a little bit of Old Olive. And this is also from Grassy Grove. This is like a large Grassy Grove scene. Hi, Roberta. How are you? I was talking to Roberta earlier today, and I was like, I think I'm going to go live tonight. She was designing. I was designing. We're working on stuff. Busy on a Saturday night. Okay. So let me just make sure. This is a big stamp, so I just want to make sure it's clean. Okay, now I love all of the texture that they have like along the line here. So I'm going to get my Old Olive back out again. And you could do garden green, you know, whatever color you like best. And we're just going to stamp. So I'm going to focus on that like upper line there. And we're just going to start adding in some texture. And it's okay if it's, you know, overlapping. Okay, and you can see how that just starts to build with the color there. And I'm just going to do a little bit of stamping off. Okay, and then we're going to clean that one more time. And let's do a little bit of Parakeet Party at the bottom there too. Trying not to shake the table. Okay. This was something that I really wanted to show while I was live. Okay, so we're getting that brighter green and kind of getting some overlap on there. Just going to angle this corner here. I can see a little bit of white right here, and that's driving me a little bit crazy. So I'm going to come back in with a darker green on that. And if you want to bring in your, you know, blending tools or your markers to color that in, you could do that too. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of Mossy Meadow here. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah, got it. Now I did get my tree trunk too, but that's okay. You could, if you have the masking paper, you could do the masking paper with this if you really want to make sure that you don't get messy with your trees. But honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay, so this is what the layer ends up looking like. Roberta says she's good. She's glad she caught me. Me too. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. So here, now tonight I'm going to be using what's called our natural tone Stampin' Blends. And in the new catalog, they have them categorized by like light, light medium, medium, medium dark, dark, deep, or whatever those colors are. I can show you what page that's on in the catalog. I'll do that at the end. I have them from when they were numbered. Okay, so they've since changed it. So back when I ordered these, it was like 100, 200. So if you see that on here, just disregard that because they now come in combos. So for example, this is the deep combo, I believe, right? So I'm going to be using the second one, which would be the lighter of the two in the combo. All right, and we're going to turn this into our tree trunks. So I'm just going to, and again, I just want to keep my, protect your surface if you're going to be coloring with your Stampin' Blends. And then I'm just going to start coming in here, and anywhere where it looks like there's branches-ish, I'm just going to start coloring and adding some color here. And like I said, even if there's some green showing through underneath, to me, it's like, for example, like our tree out front has some moss on it. So it just adds a little bit more texture. It's a little bit messy, but I'm okay with it. I know that some crafters, this would like drive them absolutely crazy. So in that case, I would say, yeah, go ahead, use your masking paper. And of course, that's like more of an advanced stamping thing, just depending on what you're doing with your add-on cards from your paper pumpkin kit. You can keep it really, really simple too. I think Stampin' Blends is one of like the first things people would start getting when they're adding to their collection or building on their collection just beyond the kits, or beyond getting like scissors and, you know, a paper trimmer, it's always fun to get either, you know, markers or some type of a coloring thing to add to your projects. Okay, so just as I'm looking here, I'm just going to add a little bit of brown to these upper pieces. And then I'm just going to eyeball it. So if there's any little pieces that I left that are like more look white, we'll just color that. Like I can see right here, there's just like a little bit of white on the tree line. So I'm just going to blot a little bit more green on that. But for the most part, I think we're good with that background. Okay, and so that's basically how I make that. It's just, to me, I just like doing it that way. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm going to use my trees again for this one, just to kind of make sure that I have that covered here. There we go. Okay, and so now that part is color or covered or colored or however you want to say that. Okay. All right, and so the next thing is I'm going to grab my paper trimmer and I'm going to grab my card. So we're going to get our paper pumpkin card base. Roberta says, now I think I need these dies. These are definitely a great one for the collection. For anybody who likes nature scenes, outdoor scenes, I think it's really, really fabulous bundle. It used to be a bundle. Now it's like separate, but totally worth it. You can still get the stamps and the dies. Okay, so which card are we using? We are using, I think it's the Moody Mauve card. Let me just grab them here. Oh. Yes. Okay, so we're going to take our Moody Mauve card. Now, the great thing about this, the other panel here being one of our in colors, is we could use that for something else later. So we're literally just going to start by cutting the card in half. We're going to cut, I'm going to go just over the score line. All right, and we're going to save that for another project another day. Now, the way this piece measures, let me just show you. This piece measures basically 5 1/8 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So what I wanted to do, I just want to show you this both ways. Okay, so if you want to put this down and still have that outer frame and just kind of, you know, put it over top, you could do that. I did not want to see this outside of the image. So we're going to trim this down to 3 3/4 by 5 1/8. Okay, so I'm going to start with the 3 3/4 first, and we're going to trim that down. And then we're going to trim this to 5 1/8. So we're just going to trim a little bit here and a little bit on this side, just to try to keep the scene as even as possible. I wanted to try to preserve as much of the original scene as I could. That's why I just wanted to incorporate these as backgrounds in these cards. But you guys could do whatever you like best. Now, I know I'm going to be covering this water source just because of the way this is set. But my suggestion is, if you love the water, just trim off the bottom. You don't have to keep the full frame. Okay, so let's see. You can see this is what it looks like if you glue it down flat. And I still think that that's a really great, you know, way to set it. This is what it looks like when it's up on dimensionals. So this layer is on dimensionals, and then layered onto the card, it's on dimensionals. But while we're doing our cutting, we're also going to trim out our treat bag. So I'm going to grab one of my boho blue treat bags. Okay, and my first goal is just exactly like what we do when we're doing alternates with paper pumpkin. I'm going to trim off just the hair on either end here and basically turn it into an individual piece. So I'm trying to cut these two pieces apart. So we're going to focus on these 3 edges and just trim them down. Just trim as little off as you can at first. And then we'll get our actual measurement going. So I'm going to trim that. And I'm going to trim this. And this is relatively easy because we have these fabulous straight lines that we can use. Now, keep in mind, a treat bag is a different type of paper, right? It's not cardstock quality. This is much thinner almost like an envelope, like would feel, that type of a thing. It's thinner paper. So keep that in mind. You know, when you're cutting, you don't have to be really heavy handed when you're cutting, or may just look a little bit different. Okay, so now we have what's going to become our layering piece. And I would use this piece for smaller things because we have sort of these two seams here, but we could use these for tags and layers and all types of fun stuff, particularly with those nested essential dies. So I'm just going to set that aside and we can use that later. And now what we're going to do here is we're going to make this the entire card front. So this is an A2 size card. So this is a basic white. I'm bringing in my own piece of card base here. So what you're going to do is just cut this at 5.5 by 8.5, score at 4 1/4. And then we're going to cover this whole front. So we're going to cut this to 4 1/4. By 5.5. And the edge that I'm, save this because we're going to use that later. We're going to use that little piece. It's adorable. So we're going to go to our 5.5 inch and we're going to take our flat edge. Unless you want this little decorative edge here, that's what we're going to trim off. So we're going to take that piece off and we're just going to make this basically a piece of DSP. So we're going to do 5.5 inches. And again, save this because that's going to be fun to use on something else. We're going to have some fun with those in future projects. Okay. And I do need to trim up another little piece, but I think I can use my scissors for that. So we'll just go with this first. Now, because this paper is so thin, I'm not recommending multi-purpose glue with this. I would recommend your Seal Plus, tear and tape adhesive, something that is going to be less sticky so that it doesn't look like it's been wet, right? If it's cardstock quality or, you know, anything like that, then you don't have to worry about that. But this is very thin. So I'm going to use my Seal for this. We're just going to, you know, get a little bit of adhesive around our edges here. I'm going to do a little bit in the center too. Okay. And then we're just going to line this up so that essentially it becomes the front. I'm trying like not to breathe because I can never get my line up straight when I'm on a line. Oh, so nerve-wracking. Okay, hang on. I think I got it. Think we got it. Oh my goodness, fabulousness. And if you happen to have any little, you know, messy edges, you could just trim it off with your trimmer or with your scissors, whatever you're more comfortable with. So this becomes our card front here. And now we're going to work these pieces. So if you want to turn it into a shaker card, that's a fantastic idea for these particular pieces. I think it would be so incredible as a shaker. I'm not going to do a shaker because as you can see, I'm down to nothing with my foam strips. But these foam strips would be so absolutely perfect to create your layer with. And as a matter of fact, I think I can still use them. I just wanted to point out that your foam adhesive strips are slightly thicker than Stampin' Dimensionals, which I just threw on the floor. Okay, because I always have the dropsies. So it's just a hair thicker. Okay, so don't try to combine the two. I would do one or the other. All right, let me see if I have enough to get this around this card piece here. I can still use the edges of this, but I could have sworn I ordered another pack of these, but it is the story of my life that every time I look for something, I don't see it. So let's see if I can pop this up. This is where you would put the window sheet, you guys. You would just use that same measurement. And I would secure the window sheet with like Steel Plus or tear and tape adhesive or something, you know, something like that. Let me get my little scissors out. These are my paper snips. Two things that I consistently recommend if you're working with paper pumpkin and you want to add in your tools is a pair of scissors and like some type of extra adhesive, like, you know, a bottle of glue or something. Now here, I just want to make sure that with my strip, it's not coming out on the sides or anything. Like you can see, we have these little details right here. So I just want to make sure that I stay on the basic white for my frame. And it's so far so good. So hang in there with me for just a second. I'm just going to take my time with this. And we're just going to trim that. And then I usually just pop these off to the side. And then if I need to use them, I can. So I'm actually going to cut into this piece. Is this already cut? Here. Let me cut into this. And we'll trim up this edge here. I did use my regular dimensionals on the sample card. Just wanted to mention that. But I do like foam strips better for this particular scene. And it's just like Joan said, it really creates that sort of pop. It creates that 3D look, which is a lot of fun. Okay, and so just want to pop this down. I am going to get this. It looks like it might show here. Hang on one second. Just want to check this, make sure it looks okay. Yeah, you can't really, I think it's okay. Like it's very hard to see. So I think we're all set there. So I'm good with this frame. And then we're going to pop this right down on here. So let's do that next. And then I'll just save this for another piece. Okay. Has anybody ordered these cards yet? The cards and envelopes? I'm dying to know. I know Roberta did. I did. Roberta did. I know that a couple of other people who've gotten them, but I'm just curious to see if that's something that has been popular with all of the new catalog orders. Okay, so I'm going to stand up for this so that I can layer this right. Kathy says that she loves the Grassy Grove dies. I do too, Kathy. Kathy and I have a very similar, likes and styles with all of our card making. I know that for sure. All right, so we're going to pop this down. This creates our little bit of our 3D scene. If you have anything that's like overlapping or showing through, like this is a little bit of that blue coming through. So I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to kind of angle it inward and just trim that. I think the rest is okay, but you could always just, you know, slightly trim around if you want to. This edge is showing a little bit. And again, this is just very minor. We'll trim that. And that really does give us that look, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to pop this onto the card. I'm going to pop this piece up on dimensionals as well. We're going to do our regular dimensionals for this one. If you guys have the foam sheet, like a gigantic dimensional, essentially, that's a good one to use here. I end up using so many small dimensionals. I don't know why I don't buy those in bulk. Okay. I've broken so many nails this month just doing other things. Did anybody watch the coronation this morning? I tried to. I tried to watch some of it. Connor wasn't into it until the helicopters until the helicopters and the airplanes showed up, spewing all that color into the air, the red, white, and blue. He loved that. Okay. And then he takes over and tells me what to watch. So, yeah, that's the way it goes in our house. Okay, so here's that original card. And so the next thing that we're going to do, and this is something that I didn't actually cut, so we can do that together, is this piece right here. So of our nested essentials, we're going to do the second one. Okay, so we're going to do that second one. It doesn't have to be the full piece either. I'm just going to use my mini, machine for this, the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. But I would say if you're going to be doing this full piece here, you're going to need the full size die. Okay, so let me grab this one. All right. And then let me grab this piece here. And let's go ahead. I'm just going to pop this back. I have an adhesive basket. That basket is such a mess. I have new organizers that I am going to be adding into the space. I'm going to be separating out my paper pumpkin kits first. And then I'm going to get busy with sort of reorganizing this table a little bit so that we can be a little more efficient. Now, when I had cut this original piece, I actually didn't cut the whole banner. I kind of cut it so that it was like slightly off edge. So let me just show you that. So it looked like this. It was just like slightly off. So we'll just do that one more time. Okay. Try to cut all those little pieces out in advance, and I always forget something, right? That's okay. All right, so those are our new ones. I'm going to put this over here. And then I'm going to be using boho blue to stamp our sentiment here. Okay. And then this is where we're going to bring back that little decorative strip, and this is where we're going to bring in our dots. Okay, so we're going to do See the Good. That is from Grassy Grove as well. See the Good. When I was first stamping this, I didn't get it right the first time. Let me just make sure that this is, yeah, this is still boho blue. Okay, so see how I'm a little bit crooked there? I'm going to flip it over. Let's do it one more time. No. Well, we'll keep this one. We'll keep it, but just for the sake of time, I'll pop a new one on there later. I'll pop a straight one on there. Okay, and so this little extra piece that we have right here, we're just going to add like a little strip here, just a little bit of a decorative element. So I'm just going to grab my Seal Plus, just go right along the edge here. And then if I have any little adhesive sticking out, I'm just going to fold that back. The Seal Plus has like these little individual like pieces, and then the regular seal is just like this snail trail type of thing. So it's just the Seal Plus that you need to worry about that. And then I'm just going to line that right up. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim that right off. Okay. All right, so there's our little detail piece. And then now we are going to get our dots. And this is boho blue. You could use whatever coordinating color you want. And we're just going to go right across. It looks like I have just a little bit on that one too. So I'm just going to straighten that out. Okay, and then I just used 3 of the largest across the top. So this time I'll use 3 of the medium just to try and keep it even. We're just going to pop them. I'm going to try to focus on this thinner line right here to try to keep them straight. I like when there's a straight line. When I'm trying to do embellishments in a row, it's kind of like a nice little guide there. We'll just pop those down. Okay, and then we're going to put this right on our layer, and this will be our card. Okay. Pop that right there, up on the edge. And I just kind of like how the two blend in. I do. It's just something about it. And there we go. Okay, so there is our first alternate card. But I think with the foreground and then that background, I just really love the way that that looks. All right, so for our next card, let's do, and I can let you guys pick if you want to pick which one you want to see. But we have the bear. We have the girls on the bench. This was the one that I was planning to do live. So do you guys want to see the girl sitting on the rock, the bench, or the bear? You can let me know. The bear was like really simple coloring. I'll make sure I put, information in the project sheet for that. The more detailed coloring was on these two here. And let's see what you guys have to say. If anybody's still here with me live, I know it takes a minute to vote. I'm going to plan on doing the new stamp set unless you guys tell me different. So let me go ahead and get the coffee set. Here it is. Okay. All right. So I think I'm going to go with this one. Okay. Regardless of which one you would choose, these are all fussy cut images. All right. So if you would want to do like a die or something, you could do that. But I just wanted to point out, and one thing I did want to say about this one is I did use a craft knife to literally cut any of those areas out around the bench so that we would see as much of the scene as possible. Okay, so just wanted to mention that. But this seems to be the simpler one, I think, for the live. let's see. New stamp. Okay. Patricia says new stamp. Hi, Patricia. How are you? Thank you for voting. All right. So we're going to do a new stamp, and she's already mounted. So let's go ahead and get that stamp out. I'm going to be using my Memento ink for this, and I'm also going to be using a piece of basic white paper so that we can, it could be scrap paper, doesn't have to be a full piece, anything that we can trim her out of. So yeah, she's going to stamp just fine on this. So we'll use this piece here, just whatever size, we all must have gigantic piles of basic white cardstock if you guys stamp on a regular basis. And let me just pull her up in the air here to get the ink on the stamp. And I'm just, I really need to re-ink my Memento, but I just want to try to get a nice crisp image here. Okay, and I should use, it's a cling stamp, so I shouldn't need the extra cushioning, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. It's a larger stamp, so I'm just making sure that the ink is transferring. Shouldn't take long. We're good. Any imperfections that you have around the image, don't worry about it because we're going to fussy cut her out. Okay. And so now we can actually do some coloring. Okay. Now for her clothes, I did Daffodil Delight. If you guys have Wild Wheat, that might be a great choice for that. I'm going to be doing Night of Navy and then some of these natural tone colors for her skin and her hair. And then we're going to do Gray Granite for the mug. Okay, for those of you who might not stick around for all of the coloring. But we are going to color together. So yeah, for anybody who wants to craft along with me, this is what we're going to do. So I am going to take, this is just going to be solid. So there isn't much fancy coloring here. We're just going to do a Daffodil Delight Dark for her shirt. And I'll start there. Okay, I think Patrick turned the air conditioning on, which I am not ready. I'm not ready for that. Okay. And then we just want to be aware of where her shirt is hitting. And that is where I'm seeing the line here. So I'm just going to kind of color it down. Very, very basic. There are so many amazing things that you can do with alcohol marker coloring and blending. So I don't want to call myself an expert in any way when it comes to coloring with blends. Sometimes I keep it really simple. Sometimes I do incorporate just a little bit of like a shadow or a technique, but yeah, we're going to keep it pretty simple there. All right, so we have her top. So that was Daffodil Delight Dark. Now I'm going to get out my Night of Navy combo pack. We're going to start with the light. We're going to work on her pants. If you guys have boho blue, if you have azure afternoon, if you have any of those new colors in the blends, those would be fun to do for the pants. I'm going to stick with Night of Navy for now. I don't have all of the new blend shades yet. So the funny thing is these cards are actually really simple. It's just the detail that goes into the coloring. Whether you're stamping the scene on the card that we just did, or whether you're creating a scene with, the Coffee with Friends, which this is a fabulous stamp set, by the way. This was designed by, this was a $1 Million Achiever stamp set. Her name is Sandy Roll, Sandy with an I. So I just want to shout her out because I absolutely love this stamp set. And all images are copyright Stampin' Up. I just want to make sure that I start saying that every video. It'll be listed on any card that's published in a photo on my blog or anywhere like that. Okay. I'm also going to do Night of Navy for her tongs or her sandals. I'm going to take my time. And try very hard not to color her feet, Night of Navy. Okay. So now I'm going to incorporate the skin tone color. We're going to come back to do the detail on the jeans. So this would be the light combo that I used. I'm going to use, it's listed as SU900 on this one, but I believe it would be the warmer tone in the light combo pack, okay? It's hard for me to say because they changed the coloring after I worked on this. I mean, after I bought the original set, let me put it that way. Okay, so just want to make sure I'm getting her neckline and her face. We're going to come down here to her wrist and her hand. Make sure I get her fingers. There's fingers on the other side of the mug as well. So we're going to make sure we get those two. I know it's all in the details with this one. Now we're going to work on her legs because she's wearing capris. So you can just see with the artwork from the, the people who create these stamps, so much detail here. It's so cool. Maybe something you might not even notice until you start coloring the image. Okay, and I'm not going to do anything complicated like with her skin tone here, right? We're just going to stick with that one color. Now for her hair, I'm going to use the same color that I used on the tree trunks. So this is from that deep combo, and it is that second color. So the lighter of the two in the deep combo, let me just say it that way. You could do blonde hair, red hair, gray hair, black hair. I'm going to do brown. I want to be careful that I don't get this hair like on her shirt in a way that it's not supposed to be. Okay. And I also want to be careful with this little swoop right here around her face. Now, one thing that I like to do with hair, and you can do this with the Stampin' Write markers if you want to, or you could do this with like a detailed part of the Stampin' Blends. I'm going to take the basic black Stampin' Write, and I'm just going to add a few more strands in her hair. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of color to that hairband that's holding her hair back. Okay, so to me, it's just a little extra touch, but it's worth it. I like the way that it looks. I'm going to do the gray granite mug here, and then we're going to add in that detail. You could even put a little bit, just a hair of like brown color inside the mug to make it look like coffee or tea. Let's do that. I think that'll be fun. I'll take, looking for 500. 500 is kind of like a latte color. That would, I believe, be in the light medium or medium. I'm going to have to see if I can find a conversion chart so I can make sure I'm telling you guys the right thing. All right, so that's the mug. And then now I'm going to add just a little bit of detail to the pants here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on where the artists have the creases here. And then down here where there would be shadows. So kind of like where she's sitting. And then right in the crook here of her jeans. And then here. So just adding that little extra bit of darker color here. Okay. And then I'm going to take the lighter and I'm going to sort of blend them together here. Just try to get a little bit of a pattern going on these and just make that combo work. Okay. Just going to go along the crease there, and it just sort of adds a little extra something to her pants. And then right there behind her heel, I'm going to do just a touch of the dark as well. The dark night of navy. Okay, I'm going to leave the toes alone, the toe area. All right, and so that's the coloring, and then we're just going to fussy cut her out. And Patricia says, good, beautiful coloring. Thank you so much, Patricia. I'm so glad that you like it. This is one of those things that I personally really enjoy. Like, I find it soothing. I know that coloring isn't necessarily for everybody. And particularly like when we're focusing on a paper pumpkin kit, which I realize we don't have the kit to actually work with these cards yet. So we're kind of coming up with some other ideas here. But this kind of gets a little bit more into, you know, once we've built some of these things into our collections and we want to kind of have a little more fun with these add-on cards and do a little bit more with our kits, you know, kind of like getting into those alternates, which you guys know I love to make. Now, there's a little bit of steam coming up out of her cup, but I'm not going to keep that for this particular card. Okay, so I'm going to trim that off. But I'm going to try to stay as close as I can when cutting this out. The only thing that I did try to preserve that was really detailed are her eyelashes here. I'll show you what I did. We're just going to kind of leave a little bit of white space there for now. And then I'm just going to trim this piece out. I'll save that for later because I can still use part of that paper. And then we're just going to kind of go up and around here. And around her hair. So this is one of those things where, yes, this is a detail element, but when you put her on the card, it's so worth it. It's so worth having fussy cut it out because she blends right in. At least I think she does. I know the style of the artwork is different, but I still think it complements the card. I really do. I think that they end up looking really cool together. All right, and again, we don't have to worry about the steps. We don't have to worry about coloring them. You could do that, like if you wanted to have them there, but I'm just going to plop her on the rock. So we'll just position her there for the card. Okay. And then I usually just take those pieces off as I'm going around and fussy cutting. She is a larger image to fussy cut. Same with the bench. But again, I just think it's so worth it. Definitely an easier image I felt to cut out was the bear. But when you're cutting out people or when you're cutting out a bench, in that case, that it is a little bit trickier. Okay, and then I just want to make sure I get her leg. I just want to make sure I'm separating the leg from the step. Okay, and I'm moving the paper more than I'm moving the scissors, actually. Okay. All right, and then we just have to round it right here. Fussy cutting and coloring are like two of my favorite things to do, honestly. Now, you can see there's this little white spot here, and then we have to figure out what we're going to do about her eyelashes right here. So if you happen to have any little extra white space, you can take care of that right there. Just kind of trim that off. What I ended up doing here, instead of having to cut that out, was just coloring it with just a hair of gray. Just a little bit, nothing crazy, just almost like a shadow. And then with her, okay, there's just such a small space. You could just leave it just like that if you want to. I am actually going to go in here. This is where we are going to get just very detailed here for a sec. I'm just going to trim that out. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing right above. I swear you can tell. You're like, is it worth it? Yes, it is worth it. You can tell. I think it's important to keep that piece. Okay. So now we're just going to add her to the card, and she is on the copper clay card. Okay. That's this card right here. And if you would like, let me just show you. So this particular card, I used the wild wheat as a layer. and I popped this onto a basic white card base. Okay. And I did the same thing with the, it's the same die cut up in the corner here with the boho blue dots, right? So if you want to trim that out, you can. Just for the sake of time in the video, since I did that with the prior card, you know what to do. You would know how to handle that. I'm just going to pop her right onto this card base. But in the project sheet instructions with this photo, I'll be sure to show you guys, you know, the measurements and stuff if you want that. Okay, so it's this rock right here that I was focused on setting her down. And then I'm just going to use a combination of the Stampin' Dimensionals here, a couple of large, a couple of small. Okay. I think for her head, I can still get the large. Yeah, it was her feet. When we get down to her knees and her feet, I had to switch to the smaller ones. Or if you only have the large ones, you can cut them in half. Or you could use the foam strips, but just keep in mind, if you use the foam strips, I do have to cut this in half. If you use the foam strips, they're thicker than the dimensionals, because I've run into that before where I was like, oh, I'll just pop a strip onto it. And they're not the same size. All right, so that's just cutting a mini dimensional in half for her feet. I do want to make sure she's pretty secure on here. But I want that little bit of dimension there as well. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pop her right here on this rock. Isn't that so cool? I mean, she just fits right into the scene. I can't even... I love this combination. I cannot even tell you how much. The ink we're going to use is Wild Wheat for this particular sentiment. And this sentiment is actually also from Coffee with Friends. I just need to cut out one more of these. So let's see if I can. Next time, I promise you guys, I'll have them pre-cut. Especially on nights when I'm coloring, right? Okay, one more time with this. And let me just get my mini plates wherever I may have stashed them. Here they are. I use my plates as many times as humanly possible, so I end up getting little fuzzies on them. Just get new plates is the answer to that problem. Or I should say the solution to that problem. All right. How am I doing on time? Oh, we just went over an hour. Okay. Card looks so lifelike. It really does, Patricia. I agree. It looks so real. It just looks so real to me. Like the artwork, I just really want to know who created these cards, because it is just, to me, they are so inspiring. I just absolutely love them. You guys are going to hear me talk about them pretty much nonstop until the kit comes out. You know it's crazy if I'm using the add-on cards before I even got the paper pumpkin kit yet. You know what I mean? But I really, when I saw these, I was like, there are so many things that we can do with these. And I am somebody who really likes seeing, building stamp sets, dies, backgrounds, designer series paper. I love anything that looks like it's telling a story, anything scenic. So that was right up my alley. Okay, so we're going to do Thinking of You with Wild Wheat. Okay. Thinking of You. And let me stand up. So sorry, you guys. I'm going to stand up so I can do this. Try to do this straight. I'm doing this little banner sideways. Okay, nailed that one. Not that easy enough. Okay. And then leave yourself enough room for your little dots. The little dots are just a nice little addition. You don't have to, but I think it's cute. This is what it looks like if you do it flat to the card. I'm going to pop mine up on dimensionals, but it looks great flat to the card too. It's so funny because it's like, I don't want to cover any of the scene. Like I had the hardest time even putting the banner on there. Okay. And you could do like, if you guys have our heat tool, you can actually emboss on vellum. And that's a thought for these cards, like embossing on the vellum so you can kind of still see through the image because they're just so beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to pop this right here. All right, so this is the difference if you're just using the full card base versus if you're doing the layer with the treat bag as a background or as DSP. And then let me go ahead and get my little dots. Where did I put them? Where are you, dots? Talk to me. I cover everything. Oh, here they are. Okay, another one would be, should we do wild wheat? This is what wild wheat would look like. And this is how I did this, by the way. This is how I lined these up. I just literally popped it on here. So this is our blue. This is copper clay. Of course, Moody Mauve doesn't really fit in with this theme. And then that actually looks cool too, but I think I'm going to stick with boho blue, but you know what? I think the gold looks good too. I keep saying gold. It's wild wheat. I need to keep correcting myself. Wild wheat, wild wheat, wild wheat. Okay, let's put these on. We're just going to do one of each size for this one. I'm going to try to follow this dotted line here again to try to keep them straight. Just touching them to the dotted line. Okay. There we go. I think that looks better. Yeah, good. All right, and so there we have those. Okay, so there is our second card. All right, so this one is the one where we have the layers. It has the white card base. This one is the card base from the Cards and Envelopes pack. One thing I did want to mention, I didn't get a chance to do this off camera, but I'll do it off camera and I'll take a picture of it. This is our Timber 3D embossing folder. And I think it would be so cool to put the copper clay envelope. Basically, you guys are going to see me. I'll be doing this at some point. We'll be doing this at some point. Whether it's with this side, right? Like if you want to do a layer, if you want to cut this in half and make this the Timber the 3D embossing folder, or if you want to have some fun and actually emboss the envelope, you could just take it up to the score line and emboss it. And then flip it and do it the other way. But I would actually keep this flat and then we don't mess with the adhesive, but you could always put your own adhesive on here. But I just think that would be such a cool look for these two. So I just wanted to mention those, but I'll bring the cards back in now. I'm not going to color it on camera. Maybe I can pre-record myself coloring this piece. But for this, I just used a combination of the medium dark and the dark or the deep. Let me look it up in the catalog before we go so that I'm giving you the right information. I will have it on the blog and I will have the products linked tomorrow on the project sheet as well. But let me just show them to you here. So if you get, hang on. All right, it's going to be on page 136 of the annual catalog 2023-2024. You can see number 9, Natural Tones Stampin' Blends. And they have these combo packs here, light, medium, medium deep, and deep. Okay. I used all of them in some capacity just between all of the coloring that I was doing. But I would say the two that I used the most was in the deep category and the medium deep. I did use light on the girl that I just colored. Okay. And for their hair, for the tree trunks, if you have the bronze and ivory, that will work. But that's what I used on the bear as well. Just a combination of those natural tone colors. All right. And then let me go over this one with you really quick. So for those of you who are interested in coloring these with your Stampin' Blends, I just want to point out the colors. Okay. So I used Old Olive for her top. I used Cajun Craze for her hair. I wanted her to look a little bit sunburned, so I used those medium light colors there. That's why she looks a little bit pinkish. And I just kind of combined those colors. I also used Night of Navy for her pants, and then this is Smoky Slate with basic black on her shoes. For her, this is Flirty Flamingo Dark. This is, I believe, either the second darkest or the deepest shade that I have on her skin tone. And then her hair is basic black light. And again, I kind of colored in some lines with the Stampin' Right marker. This is crumb cake and gray granite on these little coffee cups. Just here and here, I left this white. This is crumb cake on her pants. And then, of course, we also have that same Flirty Flamingo dark down here. And I just left the soles of her shoes white. So those were pretty much like the color combos that I was doing there. And I did a touch of like basic black and smoky slate for her sunglasses. So you can just kind of see those details. Now with the bench, I actually did a combination of bronze and ivory. So bronze on the edges, ivory in the middle. And then I took this like this very soft, it was either 300 or 500. So I think this is in the medium. Just something that looks like a latte-ish color. Anything that you have that's like latte-ish, even crumb cake. And then just kind of combine them together. So that's one of the beauties of using the Stampin' Blends. That was something I did do a little more coloring with. And then here, the edging on the very top and bottom of the bench are that darker brown, that deep color. And then here is a combination of gray granite and smoky slate with the metal parts of the bench. And then, like I said, I fussy cut out these pieces of the bench and I fussy cut all around the girls. So I cut around the girls, I cut around the edges. And then when I had to get in here, I used a craft knife. So that's the only difference there. But you can see that's what it looks like dimension wise. And I just put them right on the path. I just think that adds so much. Okay. So that's it. Let me see if I can pop back in. Kristen says, this looks like my scenery across the way from my house. Oh my gosh, where do you live? That is fabulous, Kristen. This is beautiful scenery to wake up to every day. That's like the dream. Patrick would be like in his happy place if we lived in any of these card scenes. So anyway, just to wrap it up, just in case you're joining late, we have been working with the Exploring in Color cards and envelopes, which are going to be add-ons for the May Paper Pumpkin Kit, which we haven't even finished the subscription period for yet, but I couldn't wait. I just couldn't wait. I just think they're so stunning. Okay, so that's it for the cards. Let me just come back on and say goodbye to all of you. So, and let me go to the 2-shot because I didn't do my makeup or anything. I literally was like, Patrick, I'm going to jump on and do a Saturday Night Live with these cards because I'm so excited about them. So there you go. I'm going to work on getting this blog finished and updated. I'll be working on it tonight. I should get the replay, the project sheet and everything like that posted tomorrow. If you guys, I don't know if I want to point the light on myself, but I will. I don't know if you're already on my email list. If you're on my email list, I send the project sheet out when I send the link for the replay. That's just like a convenience thing, right? And that way you don't have to like re-sign up to get the project sheet, but you could do that any way that you want to. It doesn't matter. But it's just like, it's basically just sent right to you. So if you're on my email list, if you're not, I have like different ways that you can join my list. You can join from my blog. You can join from my Facebook page where it says join my list. There's all different ways. Every YouTube video I have posted has a link to my email list. So it's everywhere. But I'll work on making sure that I get this replay, the project sheet, the photos, and everything like that published tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But I really hope that you enjoyed these card ideas. I cannot wait for the May kit. I cannot wait. So make sure you're subscribed by May 10th for the Exploring in Color kit for May. That will coordinate with these cards. I cannot wait in particular to see what the stamp set looks like. There's a set of free stickers that's actually coming in the May Paper Pumpkin kit too, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's it for me. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. And I will see you again on Tuesday at noon. Okay, bye-bye.